Greetings, everyone. Nate the Nerdarchy here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with some nerds.
Nerdarchy's Dave.
Nerdarchy's Ted.
Nerdarchy's Ryan.
And today we're going to be talking about how to use the Hobgoblin Horde as a GM 911.
If you guys have GM 911s, even viewer suggestions, you can send them over to nerdarchy@gmail.com, or you can send it over to the forum where we found this one.
And I believe you'll be putting the GM 911 in the description below, right?
That is correct.
We might have to paraphrase it because...
no way, I'm putting it in there.
Oh,
you guys can read it, and you guys can tell Zorak what you think of his condensed version of a GM 911.
Short and long version.
All right, so the gist of it is the campaign that Zorak has going on. The party wants to go up against hobgoblins because they're an intelligent adversary. They use tactics. There's a lot of them, but
and they hate them or something.
And they hate them. But as the campaign rolls on, he doesn't want to constantly just be there's more.
You don't want to have your garden variety hobgoblin.
So how do I spice this up? Nerdarchy, please, you're my only
use
help.
the same tactics. He's like, do I use class levels? But you actually have it a little bit backwards because in 5th edition of the Dragons, you don't add classes to your monsters. You add monsters to your NPCs.
So the page 282 of your Dungeon Master's Guide has the NPC features, which has the ability modifiers and features that you would add to an already created NPC. Oh, I want to make a Deep Gnome Archmage. Okay, well, you grab the Archmage, and then you just slap on a +1 to Strength, +2 to Dex, and add these cool features, and voila, I've got a Deep Gnome Archmage. Done. So for Hobgoblin...
You would use the Knight, the Veteran, the Gladiator.
Right.
You know, if you wanted to use the Priest or Cleric, you could use those.
But, there's no stat adjustments that are necessary. You get Martial Advantage, Dark Vision, and then it's got the ability to speak Common and Goblin. Now, there's nothing to say beyond this that you couldn't tailor-make some significant challenges that you want to throw against them. You up the hit die. You might add a couple powers that are, flavored or taken from other NPCs of a significant enough challenge.
Maybe mount some of your knights, which you already talked about. You said also using allies, which we found a great resource for allies in the Storm King's Thunder. Like you when you were talking about stuff, it really made me think of one of the pictures, and I gotta show off the picture.
The picture is awesome
because the picture is really cool. And that guy is called a Goblin Hucker.
Yeah, which is from Storm King's Thunder, which we can throw a link to down below if you want to check it out.
So basically what happens is, and oddly enough, I didn't know this until I thought of the picture and said, well, let me take a look at that. And essentially the Goblin Huckers are ogres wearing these contraptions.
They're trebuchets. That's what they are.
Yeah, that can throw things. But one of the things that the
main thing that they throw
is goblins wearing spiked helms and spiked armor. Well, apparently this is actually a Hobgoblin invention. So it works right along with what you're doing.
So you got ogres, you got goblins, and goblins being launched.
Now, the goblin has the ability to be willing to load itself into one of these things. And that's exactly what it says in here. It's the funniest damn thing.
Yeah, so it takes someone's action to load the trebuchet, and the ogre can't actually do it himself, but he can fire it as his action, so he needs a helper. But if that helper actually is the ammunition, then you're good to go, as long as you have a willing goblin every round. Now, the problem is, so I will read off really like the stats to this contraption, in case you don't have access to Storm King's Thunder. So, Goblin Projectile, ranged weapon, attack, +3 to hit, range 150, short range, 600 foot long range, can't hit targets within 30 feet of the Hucker, one target. On a hit, it does 5 damage or 2d4 bludgeoning damage, or 4d4 piercing damage if the projectile is wearing a spiked helmet.
Which, why not? Why wouldn't you have them have one?
Yeah, that's in case you're not actually using a goblin wearing spiked armor. Hit or miss, the goblin projectile takes die 6 bludgeoning damage per 10 feet. It travels, so a minimum of 3d6 essentially, through the air, maximum of 20d6. Yeah, goblins do not survive this very often.
They generally do not survive this.
I almost see like these guys are like the bonsai pilots from kamikaze pilots from World War II. And there must be like this great prestige or honor, placed upon being selected as one of these
they
guys.
Have very short bloodlines and family trees. So they're bonsai. The bonsai comes into effect and that their family tree is not very long. long. It's a very small shape one.
They must load them up on funny mushrooms before they stick them in this thing.
Yeah, some sake, something to get them in the mood. So that would be an interesting way to go. He talked about, what kind of tactics and strategies. Obviously, you don't want to do a lot of clustering, even though the hobgoblins benefit from being near each other. I would use small strike teams of 3 to 4 in order to limit the effectiveness of your casters.
Fighters.
Yeah. So, and hobgoblins are intelligent. They're gonna know this. They're gonna know that this is a threat to them as well, and they're gonna keep that in mind. So they might work in small groups as well, and also they're gonna target your spellcasters and they're gonna seek them out and want to nullify that threat.
I mean, speaking of which, you could take the depending on the level of the party. Hobgoblins have allies. The Bugbear is a great assassin sort of thing. So what if you use the assassin class with the Bugbear slathered on top of that? And basically, while your party's actually fighting the
assassin
forces...
NPC.
Yeah, right. So while the party's fighting the force of the Hobgoblins, you have this Bugbear who... I would have your party have disadvantage to the perception checks to find it, or the maybe passive perception, is sneaking behind their enemy lines and is going to garrot the spellcaster, the wizard. So that's going to happen.
So sadly, we don't have Bugbear in here.
Yeah,
But
can get figured out.
You can try to
look at the Bugbear in the monster manual and look at the assassin.
see what you want to take.
See what the middle ground is.
That's really weird that they have everything but the Bugbear.
You've got Bullywug, you've got Dragonborn. You don't have.
Really, at worst, you can just take the NPC assassin and just add everything he's got, including his hit dice, to the Bugbear. Really.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually pretty hefty. If you look at Assassin's kind of bumpy by himself.
I haven't seen Assassin, so maybe
You're-
based on his hit dice. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, so, you can give him a strength bonus, a dex bonus, and give him the special abilities.
I believe there's a Garrett mentioned under the Bugbear entry about how that works. Essentially, it's like a protracted strangulation, which against a spellcaster who, if they need verbal components,
shut 'em up.
shut them down. So that would be a fun and interesting encounter to do.
So the other problem is he wants to know how to foreshadow this coming horde, because he doesn't want to be like a tidal wave just washing over this town and eliminating it. Possible ways to give the players warning, so they can summon a garrison to try and fortify the town. And
You got messages coming in from the hamlets that are being
refugees. Yeah, refugees in front of this horde. You could have a scout get caught, or a couple scouts get caught from the hobgoblins, and they can try and figure out that way. Maybe there's an interrogation that needs to happen, or maybe there's maybe they intercept messages from ravens or something like that.
Or scouting parties from the hobgoblins, like small strike teams, and they find paraphernalia. They're like, oh, based on what they have, this looks like the advanced scout of an army. Also, large horde is large, right? So they're probably on the horizon a big black swath of slow moving, because army camps move slow, of just campfires and things like that. Like from miles away, you're going to see armies.
Yeah, the problem with that, it works both ways. So by the time you send for help, you're sending for another army that's going to move slowly.
Yeah,
so it's too late.
I had a goblin army fighting. What they did was they were coming down a mountain, and the players found out they were coming, and they just booked it down the mountain because they're going to move so much faster than
an army.
So they to exhaustion ran down this mountain to warn the town, and the army's going to take a week to come out of that mountain and come down to the town when they took 2 days running. So it's just. You get a little bit of time, but is that enough to send a messenger someplace that's not a magic message to somebody to get the next town garrison to come over? I don't know. It depends on how far away they are. But you could probably get some, make it happen. Figure out the logistics of it. Say, okay, well, if they want to warn the next garrison over and try and get troops, how long would it take? Math it out for them. So it becomes an option for the characters.
The real situation is, as the DM, if you want there to be the time, there can always be the time. You could be like, all right, the perceived threat is they're going to be here in a week. You know that if you make it back to town and you send a message, it's going to take them a week to get here. That means the people are going to arrive here a day late.
So you have to change the math.
So you have to change the math. Well, all right, let's do the plan anyway and hope that something will happen. and the hobgoblins were delayed by a day or two because the terrain was rough, or
they're killing people.
they're now that they've arrived, now they're building their siege weapons out of the lumber from your own forest. Okay, now that gives us more time.
Or you could also introduce something interesting into the mix, like say there's a tribe of hill giants that lives in the mountains that the hobgoblins have to pass through, and maybe there's an opportunity for the players to negotiate with the stone golem or the stone giants for them to act as
I think
delaying
he changed
tactic.
them from hill giants to stone giants.
Did I?
did.
I meant
Yeah.
stone giants.
Yeah.
Hill giants. Would
He's
work,
making it
whatever.
up as he goes along.
But I feel like stone giants are more amicable. So
Yeah.
is it? But
Yeah.
so basically they harass and harry the hobgoblins while they're moving through the mountains, not really directly engaging them.
Just throwing some boulders.
Just throwing some boulders because they're not really interested in getting involved.
And little known fact, bowling is a favorite pastime of stone giants. So
It
they're like
is.
doing mountain bowling.
And the hobgoblin, military setup is really good for that.
Yeah,
But then it becomes an adventure of, going and negotiating with the stone giants to get them on board with your plan, whether it's bribery, whether it's coercion, whether you have to do something for them. But maybe it's enough to delay the hobgoblins for a week or whatever, or they have to find a way around and go some other way because it's too much of a pain in the ass and the casualties will be too much for them to constantly be barraged by
Stone giants.
stone giants.
Yeah, that works. The boulder chucking thing. And also, too, again, you could encounter the advanced scout of the army because they could be... The advanced scout could be a few weeks ahead of the actual main host of the army. It could be that the players are out doing something kind of far afield, and what's that on the horizon? And the players are able to move that much quicker than the entirety of an army.
Or even like Ted said, where there's other places that are being overrun, and maybe they have a magical means of communicating, or more traditional, and they're able to get off a couple ravens or pigeons or something. And through that you get an advance warning of 2 weeks or whatever you feel like you need as the DM for your players.
Or the beacons. You could have the beacons lower their range.
You could have the beacons.
It's always going to come down to make the math of whatever it is work for you. As the storyteller, the DM, game master, whatever title you want to use, you always have the ability to have things fit as your narration needs it to be. So make it work.
They get there when you want them to get there, essentially.
Yes.
They're,
You can always make it seem like they're closer than they are, and help arrives right as it needs to be.
In the nick of time,
Either just before battle starts or just after the battle starts. Wherever is going to be the most dramatic, the most impactful upon your story. Make it fun. That's what you're there for.
Or the help arrives just as the party's soundly defeated.
Yeah, so they don't get killing blowed.
Yeah.
Now, I would say you could also do something where if you have a ranger in the party, or if you can get a hold of rangers, there's always rangers about in the woods around towns, I would say. I mean, that's what they're kind of there for. They're like the forest warders. So you get a group of them together and get some of the hunters from the town together, and they can go off and kind of just harry and annoy.
They can nag.
Yeah, they
can nag them.
Yeah. And shoot when you're setting up your fire, you get a whole bunch of arrows shot at you. When you're setting up your trebuchet, you get a whole bunch of arrows shot at you, and then they just run off. They shoot their volley, and then they run.
They can also set up their own traps and various things. And
Yeah, that's where I originally thought you were going.
Yeah.
Well, you can also do that, but let's say there's just hunters that don't. I mean, rabbit trap, just make it bigger.
Well,
catch ourselves a hobgoblin.
but large sort of pitfalls and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
That they can take out things, or maybe it's in a terrain part of you dug out this thing that, wow, they have to go around several miles because you've just made the terrain inhospitable for them otherwise.
And I just was watching this war anime where they set a forest on fire to stop, and it was the only way through this valley was this forest. So they just set the whole freaking forest on fire, and it was slowly burning. They made it so it was going to slowly burn towards the advancing army.
No, you're not going to make any friends with any druids, but this is an option
But
as well.
you'll live.
Yeah.
And then
you're no longer under siege by hobgoblins as druids.
Yeah, so that's a tactic for delaying them again.
along
setting
with the
fire.
traps, along with the volley of arrows, you could do small strike forces or raids, burning down tents, befouling or stealing any supplies that they might need, especially food stores.
Having
Armies don't march on an empty stomach.
towns and hamlets that get abandoned, but they leave behind their foodstuffs and their water and their booze and all that stuff, and it's all poisoned or tainted.
Right.
So you make even if you're just making them sick and having them having infirm to worry about will slow them down.
Sick would be better, especially if it's something that's contagious, rather than just outright killing them.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and also too, there's the sickening thing, but I think the tactic of the citizenry of Russia when like Napoleon was invading was that they would light their fields on fire, so that this way when Napoleon's army was marching, that there was no food because the populace was destroying it as they were retreating. So.
It's going to create problems for them, but a little short-sighted.
Yeah, well, it's just dealing with an invasion force.
It's flipping your enemy the bird.
It's a problem
That's
in the
exactly
moment.
It was supposed to teach a lesson of history, but Hitler didn't learn that lesson.
Yeah.
And he did this pretty much the same way.
So we've gone really far afield, I feel like, now with all the things we were like, here, you can delay them this way or that way. The point is they can get there when they get there. It's up to you. There's different things where you can have the players involved with that. So hopefully we've given you enough to work with. In the comments below, you guys, why don't you help out? You can see the original post in the description. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can tweet at us at Nerdarchy.
You can also find us over on Instagram.
So check out the articles over at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy. Spice this up. Nerdarchy, please, you're my only
Use
help.
the same tactics. He's like, do I use class levels? But you actually have it a little bit backwards, because in 5th edition of the Dragons, you don't add classes to your monsters. You add monsters to your NPCs.
So the page 282 of your Dungeon Master's Guide has the NPC features.
You can send it over to the forum where we found this one.
And I believe you'll be putting the GM91 in the description below, right?
That is correct.
We might have to paraphrase it because
No way, I'm putting it in there.
Oh,
You guys
dear.
can read it, and you guys can tell Zorak what you think of his condensed version of a
the
GM911.
short and long version.
all right. So the gist of it is the campaign that Zorak has going on, which has the ability modifiers and features that you would add to an already created NPC. Oh, I want to make a Deep Gnome Archmage. Okay, well, you grab the Archmage, and then you just slap on a +1 to Strength, +2 to Dex, and add these cool features, and voila, I've got a Deep Gnome Archmage. Done. So for Hobgoblin...
Greetings, everyone. Nate the Nerdarch here from Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with some nerds.
There's Dave.
Nerdarch is Ted.
Marcus Ryan.
And today we're going to be talking about how to use the Hobgoblin Horde as a GM911.
If you guys have GM911s, even viewer suggestions, you can send them over to nerdarchy@gmail.com, or you
The party wants to go up against Hobgoblins because they're an intelligent adversary. They use tactics. There's a lot of them, but
and they hate them or something.
and they hate them. But as the campaign rolls on, he doesn't want to constantly just be there's more.
You don't want to have your
Hobgoblins.
garden variety Hobgoblin.
So
Eventually it
how
gets-
do I